I think the big thing that we just point out in the past is because the pass-through money is a small percentage of what we actually spend on special education. The Part B money. This is the federal money. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the service we provide to kids who aren't enrolled in the county, like homeschoolers and private school kids,
That's a
right now we
set-aside.
just do speech language, right?
We do speech language, and then we will do consult for SLD.
Oh, okay.
And we've done that in the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that, I think that piece is in
Yeah.
this.
Yes, that's
part
your
of- part of
set-aside
the
funding
report.
for that.
611
611 is special education, kindergarten through 21, and 619 is your preschool. And so they're all put in together into the application itself.
Okay.
But they're divided out between those two. Okay.
You all.
I mean, can you look on your, kind of guide us through it a little bit, just to give an overview, since most of us can't even see it right
Yeah,
now?
I think,
Sorry.
Well, and my apologies, but I'm not really sure what's going on. It's presenting, there's a screen there, but.
Right, I mean, if you could just walk us through some of the numbers.
You know what, it's easier to do it.
what's the total
on my
Part B
screen.
amount?
2.6 million is the total
Okay,
amount.
So, and what's the total special ed, like how much do we spend, including that, in our special ed department? Do you know?
I have to get back with you, I don't know that on top of
Do you
my
have
head.
any job positions funded under Part B?
Yes, there are.
What job positions are funded under Part
Hold
B?
on, I've got those, and I don't want to misspeak, so hold on. I believe there are, give me just a second. All right, I'm going to say it off the top of my head because I think I know it. There are 27.
No.
There are 3 teachers, 3 special education teachers. There are 27 instructional assistants, and there's 1 instructional special education supervisor. They're out of those funds. Okay. And you'll see that.
Quick
as
question,
you
why
look
do you
through.
guys only do SLP, speech language services?
We do that and a consult. and-
Yeah, I'm asking why, the why.
Well, that has been where we've been before. As I'm new coming into this.
I can explain,
we will
I'd be
take a
glad
look,
to
but
tell
go
you
ahead, that would
what
be
Randy's
fine.
explained in the past. That he felt that that was the service that would cover the most students, especially for homeschooled students. That was the way to spread the money to the most students.
Mm-hmm.
That other services might have provided, more services for individual students, but that was the way to.
Is there any plan of expanding that to other disability categories through this funding?
I don't know, I will look into that. Like I said,
It
I'm
is
new
not-
coming into it,
just
but
to be
it's not a whole lot of funding
it's-
source that's in there. So
My
as she
concern would
said,
be
to get the
SLD being
best.
on consult, especially our children.
Mhm.
Like the younger ones, I don't believe that consult's necessarily adequate if you have a student who has early signs of dyslexia, for example, and we just use a consult model.
So if they're preschoolers
Mm-hmm.
in the district, starting at age 2, they can have an IEP.
Yeah, I'm talking about
Like
school-age
homeschooler.
homeschooled kids
Right,
that were just
right.
saying, okay, mom and dad, figure it out, and then the kid's throwing pencils at mom and dad, and they're not
Right.
figuring it out, and then by the time they're old enough, they enroll in school, they never had research-based instruction.
Thank you, I'll take that in
Yeah.
consideration to looking things
Yeah.
futurely, but again,
So that was my wondering
Sure.
if there was any plan.
We
Sure.
don't there's no district money that goes toward that
no, that's
piece.
just,
That's
it's just your state
we're
set aside.
required to set aside that.
Mhm.
And each district can
Enough.
choose what disability categories they choose to
Right.
cover. So other counties might cover different disability
Right.
categories.
Right.
That's correct.
And that's certainly something that we can take up in terms of recommendations for, now, just to be clear, we're talking, just so we're talking about the same thing. The speech language services would be provided to students in any disability category. So you could have a kid with
No,
ID.
typically you have to, your primary disability has to be what in which is covered.
Okay.
A related service is not covered typically under that model in which she's describing as a primary disability.
Yeah, it's a disability, it's not
Okay.
related.
So
No,
if
I
you had
know-
even if you had that as a secondary, it still
So I
wouldn't
know
cut the
in my
cheese.
son's case, he had it as a secondary, and he was, I believe, and he was covered as a preschooler.
That's different.
Yeah,
this
she's
is
talking
school
school age.
Right,
Yeah,
but
it's
this
a primary
was. you're-
disability.
That's different.
But the example that you gave.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, as a homeschooler, he was covered.
But
for-
I'm talking about, say you have a 5-year-old who's SLD, who's not reading, they're getting consult.
Got it, I understand.
Yep. All right. there are no
Right.
other questions, what I would like to do, unless there are other questions, what I would like to do, or if you're okay with this, I'll just go ahead and do the director's report to you guys, since I have a little more
Sure.
time than what I thought I had.
Yeah.
And we'll just go through what's been going on, if that's
So
okay.
we're going
with
down
you.
to Roman numeral 4, the special education
Yes,
director's
please,
report.
that's okay.
Absolutely.
All right, so I just wanted to share what's been going on since we last came to the table here. Interim director for special education has been approved. Interim instructional supervisor for special education has been approved. Instructional
Is that
supervisor.
an interim?
That's the interim one. There is still a special education supervisor position vacant.
So Ms. Osborne is interim?
She is interim.
Okay.
Mhm. Yes.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. I
That's
just wanted
okay.
to clarify.
Yep. Transitions fair was last Saturday at Fauquier High School. It was a good turnout and seemed to be well accepted. Job fair was last Saturday with some potential special education teachers. Annual plan again was presented at the school board meeting on Monday night. The Linda Mabel reading program will continue this summer as an option for students requiring level tier 3 reading support. This is just a cute note. Haley's baby was born on February the 29th. She'll remain on maternity leave until sometime in May.
On the 29th?
Yeah,
She'll leave
yeah.
your baby?
She left right when she.
Michael Wines is assuming most of the IEP, Virginia IEP duties at this time.
For those of you who don't know, Dr. Haley Schlechter is our Parent Resource Center coordinator and sort of coordinator of a lot of other things as well.
Yeah, so
And
she's our
she
person who
is-
oversees
she just
Medicaid
had a
and
baby.
Virginia IEP in our system. Okay. The budget, the annual school budget, if approved, will include more special education staff, which would consist of 1 educational diagnostician and 2 school social workers. Okay. And the last thing was just the flyer that I put on the table, inviting you guys to something that came across my email that I would share with you guys. So those are our notes for this evening.
Great.
Okay.
And as I understand it, you need to go.
I've got a little bit of time. I
Oh,
actually got
good,
extended a
okay.
little bit, so I'm good.
We'll
I
see
just
how
thank
far
you for
we
letting
get.
me go first, okay?
Great, thank you.
All right.
Appreciate having you here.
Mhm.
Are there any questions for Ms. Gum on her report?
I have a question on this. What math programs are you guys looking into purchasing with the funds?
Right now, our math programs that cover tier 1, 2, and 3, and so those are what we're using.
Because it says 6,000 will cover expenses for assistive technology, expansion and reading and math programs. So
Yes.
you're just expanding the same programs that you're utilizing, which is what is the research-based program for math?
You're going to have to get back to me, or I'm going to have to get back to you on that one. Our math supervisor and I correlate a little bit, but not too much, but I can get an answer back to you on that. Okay.
And what assistive technology expenses do you guys typically have to cover with these funds?
They're listed under there, our computers, our large screen monitors, and the iPads.
Oh, no, I mean assistive technology. Like, is that what you mean for assistive technology, like different computers types of things? Like, I was thinking like communication devices, but
That's
you're
what I'm talking about.
thinking-
Talking about the iPads.
iPads,
Which are used as communication
things like that.
devices.
Okay.
There are some kids who need, actually, the Chromebooks.
Yep.
If they're not in a grade level where it's 1-to-1 throughout the division, the protectors for those. We have
Gotcha,
some
that
large
kind
screen
of stuff.
monitors for some visually impaired children.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Yes, sir.
Would an eye gaze communication device fall under that?
If we had one, yes, that would be under our.
Those are like $15,000.
But it would not fall under the
No.
$6,000
Well,
budget.
we have,
Typically, that's
we have some right now.
Medicaid.
We already have
Yeah.
some, so they are in our inventory, but we're not looking to need to
Yeah.
purchase one
They're
this
very
year.
pricey.
I understand,
Yes,
thank you.
but yes.
But, yeah, all
Yes.
of
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. would fall
Yeah,
under
that's
this.
usually, you can fund through Medicaid.
Mhm.
Typically.
Most of my students use eye gazes.
Yes, they
Yeah,
do, don't they?
Very cool. That's awesome. Do you know Teresa Dudbowski?
No, ma'am.
No. Interesting. Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Okay.
All right. I'm going to pass on to the next then.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
Ms. Crane is up.
I would prefer not to call it pass on.
That's what it is. It's just-
I guess I'm next.
I would like to, while she's setting up, and hopefully we can figure this out. I've been lucky enough to be part of the group that is choosing a Tier 1 reading program, core reading program to recommend to the school board. And so that process has been very interesting, and it's been nice. I appreciate that she included me so that we could have some special ed perspective. She has quite a team. How many people are on your team?
The team?
Your team?
The committee?
The big committee, the
Yes,
team.
ma'am,
the-
32.
32.
Wow.
It is not a small committee. And it's been a great group, and I'm really, really excited about what we're coming up with. So that's not really a special ed piece, but in thinking about the whole process, and
You did.
with my personal focus on inclusion and the concerns of this group, having a Tier 1 program that lends itself seamlessly to integrate with some Tier 3 interventions, whether we decide to do them or not, that gives us a lot of options. So I'm excited about that. I think that'll be coming to the school board sooner rather than later. And we want to see light. Is the lens cap on? My go-to.
Maybe the computer's not talking to the. That's what it looks like to me.
Flashed a little bit more. Took Angie's computer.
Yeah, you know, and this is the setup we've used at every meeting for the last 2 years, so you never know. Well, while we're waiting on that, if it's okay with you, Ms. Crane, I will start my report because I have a long one.
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Oh, here we are.
I want you to be able to see it.
Oh, yeah.
There we
There we
go.
go. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Can we? There we go. It's warming up.
It's coming.
I'm sorry, I heard somebody say, can we?
The big
Yeah,
question
we're
is,
good now.
can a projector for this room be considered assistive technology?
It is not directly servicing students. Thank you.
So, good evening, my name is Kathy Crane, and I am the Elementary Language Arts Supervisor and Title I Coordinator for Fauquier County Public Schools, and I really appreciate you inviting me tonight to speak with you all. I've had the pleasure of doing this the last few years, and it's really great to have the opportunity to come and tell you what we're doing with Tier 1 instruction, and there is a whole lot of changes coming down the road with the Virginia Literacy Act. I was sharing with Mrs. Hunter earlier before the meeting started that today we got the Virginia Literacy Playbook from the state. And so for your reading pleasure, you can log into the Virginia Literacy Act website and download the 50-page playbook that's going to help us guide what we're going to do next year and beyond with literacy instruction. So you'll notice tonight the whole reason why I'm here is to talk about improving literacy instruction for all learners in Fauquier County. And so I know this is a lot to read, but I find that this is so very important, and I don't often do presentations where I read things to people, but when I find that it's super important and it needs to be known from everybody far and wide, this is what the Virginia Literacy Act is holding us responsible for. So this is the law that's driving everything that we're doing right now. So every student in kindergarten to grade 5 will receive core literacy instruction based in scientifically based reading research and evidence-based literacy instruction as defined in the VLA. Students in kindergarten through grade 8 will also receive evidence-based supplemental instruction and intervention as outlined in an individualized student reading plan if they do not meet literacy benchmarks. So I'm going to stop right there because since the Virginia Literacy Act was passed, there's been some changes, and they've not updated this verbiage yet, but there have been some changes that we've recently found out. First of all, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students will not be receiving the supplemental and intervention those products to be implemented during the 24-25 school year. Our division literacy plan that we're putting together has now, it's got a focus of kindergarten through 5th grade, and so middle school, their implementation has been put off for a year. And so really the focus is on K-5. Again, they've not changed the verbiage in the law to match the information that we're getting from the VDOE. The student reading plans, when you read that, you think the student reading plan is going to be everybody K-5. That's how it was initially written. Now it will be students in kindergarten through 3rd grade who fall in an at-risk band from the Virginia, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the screener, what was known as PALS. Our new assessment will be VALS, that will be the new screener. I know, you can't make it up.
Yeah.
I know, so PALS, AKA VALS, and so
Oh, nobody's going to mess that up.
nobody is going to mess that up at all. And so, I know, I always have to go, because sometimes there are two S's, and sometimes there's only one S in the acronym, so you have to be very careful not to use it incorrectly. You have to watch your S's. And so, our students that fall in the at-risk band in VALS from kindergarten through third grade will have a student reading plan. And that will invite families in to be a part of that, classroom teachers, administrators. So that will be a new process for us next year. Every family will have access to online resources to support literacy development at home, and will be able to participate in the development of their child's student reading plan if their child does not meet literacy benchmarks. And yes, if your student has an IEP and they do not meet the benchmarks, or they fall in that at-risk band, I've got to remember it's not benchmarks anymore, in the at-risk band, they too will have a student reading plan in addition to their individualized education plan. Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything preventing that from being done in the same process?
Not that I know of. We've received very little guidance from the VDOE. I look for that more information to continue to come out that will guide those conversations. We're just starting to work on the division literacy plan. And so it's important to note they've not shared a lot of information about the template and what that would look like. It has to go through a whole approval process from the Virginia Literacy Partnerships and then to the VDOE, and then the Virginia Board of Education has to approve it. So we're waiting for that information to be shared with us. Every teacher will use evidence-based literacy curriculum, assess student learning using approved literacy screeners, use student-level data to inform instruction and intervention, and participate in pre-service preparation or training on evidence-based literacy instruction. And this is going to be new for us. Our county, I've always said this, the blessing and the curse is autonomy. And so what this is going to do for our students and our teachers is to level the playing field. We want our students who are going to school in the northern end of the county, if they by chance transfer to the southern end of the county, we want to make sure that everybody has access to the same education. And that's what this is going to do. And so we're in the process, as Mrs. Hunter shared, of adopting a core program. And we've had some initial meetings with our committee. We had presentations. We used the list from the Board of Ed, the approved list from the state, and we've narrowed it down to one program. This week, our public has an opportunity to come in to this very building and go through the program that the committee selected and provide feedback. So we're looking forward to getting that information and being able to share that with our committee members, and then very soon with our school board members. Every reading specialist, in consultation with classroom teachers, will coordinate and oversee intervention for students not meeting literacy benchmarks, and will develop and monitor student progress on student reading plans, working closely with families and teachers. So our reading specialists have been participating in Canvas modules that were designed by the Virginia Literacy Partnership. They have 9 modules that they must complete over a 9-month period of time. They had a couple of days training over the summer, and we've been giving them opportunities monthly to gather at the school board office and work together, complete the modules. There's even been some informal meetings. Every Wednesday they have a meeting with a regional coach, and they can log in, and it's been a real great opportunity for our reading specialists to connect to other reading specialists across the Commonwealth. So that's been a really great opportunity. I've assured them that they're not in this by themselves, because when you read something like this, that's a lot of pressure for one person in a building to have. And most of our reading specialists, there's one per building. A few of our Title I schools have 2 reading specialists. So that's an enormous undertaking to think that they're going to be managing all that. But I've assured them that we're all in this together. And the other great thing that we have in Fauquier County is we have 3 literacy coaches. And so when the Literacy Act was written, it wasn't really written as if every division in the state had a literacy coach and a reading specialist in a building, because quite honestly, there were some schools in Virginia that did not have a reading specialist at all. So that's why this reading specialist piece was really important for them to add to the law. We've been having reading specialists in our building for years and years and years. Back when Dr. Sandra Mitchell was up at the school board office, that was one of her things that she put in place very early on, recognizing that early intervention was so important. And so that's one thing that I'm super proud of Fauquier County, because we're ahead of a lot of divisions in that way, that we have those positions already in our budget. We have those positions in our buildings to help our neediest students. Every division will develop a literacy plan, ensure the use of evidence-based literacy curriculum, staff enough reading specialists to support intervention needs, and provide professional development to support teachers, reading specialists, and principals. And so this summer, there's going to be required training from the VDOE, from central office staff, to administrators, to all classroom teachers who teach math. Quite honestly, they're going to have to, if they're a classroom teacher in a K-5 classroom, they're going to have to take the training as well. This is across our school division, K-5. So, what I have before you is something that a committee that we've been working on, which is our draft literacy vision. That's one of the first tasks we were given as we got together. We've been one time for a work session in Falls Church. We're going towards the end of the month again. There's a group of us that we've got administrators, central office staff that have come together, and Mrs. Gum is on the committee as well. She's joined us. So there's a lot of us on there with a lot of different perspectives, and I think that's really great. So this is our draft literacy vision. The goal of literacy instruction in Fauquier County Public Schools is to ensure our students are effective communicators who purposefully read, write, and speak, paired with critical thinking skills that are required as they progress and transition through their lives. In Fauquier County Public Schools, excellent literacy instruction will use high-quality instructional materials that is rooted in science-based reading research and best practices for evidence-based literacy instruction. Utilize data to provide explicit instruction and targeted practice opportunities with foundational reading skills and structured phonics through core instruction. Engage students in using text evidence to make meaning from complex text, build vocabulary knowledge, and participate in writing and discussions to promote comprehension while reading. And finally, this goes back to what we were saying earlier, ensure equitable opportunities for all students, to do the cognitive work of each lesson and receive targeted support as needed. I mentioned vowels, and you'll notice that when you're talking about the screening system, when you're talking about vowels as a whole, that's where the extra S comes in, because it's the system. Yeah. So the Virginia Language and Literacy System. And so this will be our new screener for all of our students moving forward next year in kindergarten through 3rd grade. They are piloting 4th through 8, the screener. And yes, I applied for us to be part of that, but they've gotten so many school divisions that are interested in participating in the pilot. We got the nice letter that said, thank you, we'll call you if we need you. So I'm excited for this. I'm excited to see what changes they've put in. We have not seen the final version of what this is going to look like, but there are several subtests that will measure different areas of literacy instruction. And it really just gives us a snapshot of those critical literacy skills, those foundational skills, and helps to identify students at risk for developing reading difficulties. Provides instructionally useful information for teachers to target instruction, and then again it contains a variety of subtests. So as you can see in the presentation, there's the part for the 3 and 4-year-olds.
Can you read those? It's-
I would love
box is a
to.
little
Yes,
bit
ma'am.
small.
So this is 3 and 4-year-olds. So the first, it says print concepts, alphabet knowledge, phonological awareness, rapid automatized naming, so RAN, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with, emergent writing, and language composition. And then for kindergarten, you'll notice it changes a little bit. Alphabet knowledge, phonological awareness, rapid automatized naming, decoding and encoding, and language comprehension. For grades 1 through 3, phonological awareness, rapid automatized naming, decoding and encoding, oral reading fluency, and language comprehension. So if you're familiar with Goff and Tunmer's reading rope, you'll notice that several of those areas are covered in the new vowels, which is great. It's going to really allow teachers to use the data to help pinpoint areas of weakness to drive instruction. That's what's going to be really helpful, because when you look at the PALS report now, there's a benchmark. And we know, I'm sorry?
It's very broad.
It is,
right?
but
It's
it is,
hard to
you're correct.
target a particular skill area. So actually in Loudon, we piloted vowels this year, and so we are implementing vowels for our students. It's been incredibly helpful for our K-1 especially to know exactly where to start each of our reading groups at, so it's great.
Thank you for sharing that. That's great that you bring that perspective to this committee. I'm so glad that we need to talk. Not on a microphone, but just so I can, talk to you a little bit more, so you can give me a little bit more information about what it's like to pilot it. So thank you. Moving forward, and I know this is something that Mrs. Hunter and I have talked about. She's asked me some questions. We really have been at the mercy of the Virginia Board of Education when it comes to releasing approved programs. And that's because they're vetting these programs with a very rigorous rubric. If you haven't gone online and seen what the committees used to pick the appropriate core materials, you should do that, because there's been a lot of hard work that's been put into picking materials. So the intervention and supplemental program approval timeline has changed a little bit. So we thought at the March 28th meeting, we were going to get the list of materials that were being recommended to the Virginia Board of Education for approval. Well, they've had so many submissions, they've not been able to review them all. So a couple of weeks ago, there was a newsletter that came out from our state superintendent, and we will get the first round of approved intervention and supplemental materials at that March 28th meeting. The next list comes late summer. And my concern with that is the state's late summer is oftentimes when we're going back to school in Fauquier County. And so it's important to note that, because you don't want to make decisions without knowing all of the information, without knowing all of the materials that are approved. But you also don't want to start the school year without materials in place for your students and for your teachers. And so that's caused a little bit of anxiety for our folks, but we'll get through it, and we'll do our level best. I know what Mrs. Gum is saying right now. I bet $20,
agree.
all of you.
Crazy.
Am I right?
No, but I'll share it.
I know. I'll share it for you.
Go ahead.
Angie's really excited because Linda Mood Bell, her people told her that they made the approved list. So that's all I know. I don't know anything else, but I know that she's super excited, and that's how you all are going to continue to use it over the summer, because that was approved. Other than that, we'll be waiting. The other thing that's going to happen on March 28th is the approval of the new standards. So we are getting new language arts standards, K-12. And if you haven't had an opportunity to look at those, I encourage you to do so, because there's a lot. There's a lot. And if you really dig into it, you'll see, just to me, similar to what we were talking about vowels, where it's very explicit now, the new standards, the proposed standards, drill down into very, very specific, detailed standards, whereas before it might be like, recognize some high-frequency words.
Yeah, so the previous standards were very broad-based for literacy in particular, and so as a classroom teacher, right, it was very difficult to be like, okay, well, what exactly am I teaching for, especially when it came to like grammar, language, written composition, right? They were not very detailed. So I was actually on the committee that wrote the English Language Arts standards with VDOE last summer. And one of the things.
Oh my goodness.
That's my job.
Nice work.
And one of the things that we talked about a lot was
I have to
trying
know
to
this.
give teachers more clarity, right? So not only are we getting approved curriculum that have been vetted, but also teachers, obviously, we're always going to have to use supplemental resources and supplemental materials to reinforce what's in our core curriculum. But knowing exactly like what you should be teaching within those standards is really helpful.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you guys do standards-based grading?
So that's a great question. Yes, we do. In Fauquier County Public Schools, K through 2, in some of our schools, not consistently,
Okay.
that's correct. There's that autonomy thing we were talking about. Some of our schools do use standards-based grading. I will also say that the current report card for kindergarten through second grade is standards-based. So, you know what that means, right? We're gonna have to get a committee together and rework our report cards for next year. That's on our to-do list. We have a very lengthy to-do list, but yes, we're aware that there's gonna have to be some conversations about redoing the report card.
For you, okay?
Thank you. You know, we love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean.
So right now, we are in the process, like I told you earlier, of having our community evaluate the program that our committee recommended. 32 members. We had 27 members of the committee choose HMH as our very first choice.
Secret ballot.
So we will be on the school board meeting. We're an item for information at the work session on March 25th. And then hopefully we will be on an action item for April 8th, because as you know, we want to get the order, we want to get things rolling for our teachers so they can be prepared for our students when they come back to school. And that's all I have.
Questions?
Do you have questions?
I do. So obviously HMH has not been adopted or approved yet, but I
No.
know IMSC, OG Comprehensive Plus came into play this year with Tier 1. Are we hoping to marry them, continue that? What's the thought process on that for Tier 1?
That's a great question. Thank you. We have worked incredibly hard in the county to get our teachers trained in IMSE. We don't know yet because of whether or not it will be approved. But what I do know is they've built their own scope and sequence, and that's what we've been using the last few years for our phonics instruction. So we had a sequential, explicit, and we've really worked hard for that. The beauty with the program that our committee chose is it lends itself very well to that approach, to the multisensory approach, and I think it's going to lend itself well for us to continue using that approach. If we adopt HMH, I could see us utilizing pieces of our IMSE training to teach our students, but using that core curriculum as our guide.
And are you thinking
So does that make sense about kind of marrying both?
Were you
Yes.
thinking HMH for all grade levels up to,
5th grade.
so you're not going to expand out the gate into middle school to prepare, or you're just,
So I'm just an elementary girl. But
HMH in middle school is special.
well, just
K to 5.
just so you know, our secondary schools actually have HMH.
Okay.
And so this is year 2.
Uh-huh.
And you know, just like with anything you implement in a school, you're going to have really positive things, you're going to have negative things. You've got to just be open to the process, because you don't really know how well something's going to work until you've tried it for at least 3 years. And to be honest with you, I know as a classroom teacher and as a reading specialist, I needed to feel super confident and know a program before I really felt like I could speak to it. There may be pieces that I loved and pieces that I didn't love, but until you implement it with fidelity, you're not going to really be able to say, this is working, this is not working. You got to give it a try. And our teachers, we're very lucky. Our teachers are willing to go along that journey with us.
That's my next question for you. I'm overwhelmed on your timeline, and I know it's not your timeline, it's the VDOE timeline.
Yes,
I'm worried about the teachers.
I know, I am too.
That's my first level of concern at this. That's a lot, and I guess this doesn't really have to do with Seac, but are they being compensated for all the work they're going to have to do over the summer?
That's a really good question. And one that I'm not really able to answer.
It would be nice if the school board would take that into consideration when you look at the mountain that they're going to have to climb to get this
Well,
done.
I agree. I think I need to say we're now beyond the scope of the Seac, so I think
Okay.
when we're talking
I don't
about
know.
recommendations to the school board, we need to stay focused, but I think there are a lot of pieces of that when we begin to talk about tier 3.
No,
come
even
into
tier
play.
1. I'm
I understand, but I'm
terrified
just
on all
saying,
levels.
what I'm saying is that's not the scope of the Seac.
Got it.
When we get to tier 3, I think some of the same issues are going to apply and will be within the scope of the Seac. So,
Well, and you know,
not to disagree in any way with what you're saying.
I just had to say it because
Absolutely.
my fear is we'll lose human beings.
we've been very clear, though, in moving forward in this process, that tier 1 instruction is for all of our students. So,
Including students with special education.
Absolutely.
that's
So
right.
therefore, I'm concerned.
So the core,
And that concern, no, I think
Right.
we can communicate that concern.
so when I talk about the core, that's for everybody. You all are tasked with the core and more, and what that looks
A
like.
new teacher cannot handle a special education, I don't want to say cannot handle, it's just different when you're a newer, years 1 through 5 of teaching, it's a whole nother ballgame when you're doing an inclusion. You're learning so much. When you get a little more veteran, a little more vested, inclusion becomes much more, this is how we kind of go about it. So my fear is our veteran teachers might be like, you know what, y'all aren't paying me for this? Outie.
Well, I mean, that would be really, really sad for all of us. And that's I would say a concern that everybody has throughout the Commonwealth. But Fauquier County Public Schools, in my opinion, does a really great job of supporting new teachers. We have some wonderful people that are working to support teachers through mentoring and mentor programs. We've got a great professional learning program that we're looking to help our zero-year teachers, and our veteran teachers. Because here's the thing, when you come in to a situation like we're in right now with a new literacy program and new standards, it doesn't matter how long you've been a teacher. Everybody's learning together, and we're going to have to
From
work.
an inclusion
Yeah.
standpoint too, right?
We're gonna
So you're a
have to
new
work
teacher,
together.
You've got new things and
Yeah.
then all of this going on. So I think we covered it.
Question, will the special ed teachers be part of that training?
Part of the training from the state?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So all, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
My second question is, how many reading specialist vacancies do we have right now? Do you know?
In elementary, we have 0.
And how many do we have in secondary?
I'm sorry, I don't know. I would have to get back to you on that.
Could you? I know it's not your.
I want to say there was a vacancy at Kettle Run for a reading specialist. I know for the following year, next year, they've filled the reading specialist at Auburn. And so from what I know, middle school would be good. They're in good shape. I don't think there are any vacancies. As for high school, I'm not sure. I know there was a Kettle Run opening. We had an opening at Mary Walter, and that has been filled for next year. So in elementary, we don't have any vacancies, which is great.
That's good news. Okay, any other questions?
No, just thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely lovely, very clear, very straightforward.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And I will just reiterate that I think one of the keys to this whole process is going to be having that seamless interaction between tiers 1, 2, and 3, and having our students be able to access that at whatever point they are in their learning. So I think we will be looking forward to a lot of conversations about tier 3 in the coming year. We may have a little bit of conversation about that at our next 2 work session meetings in terms of planning for that. But I know there's a lot more up in the air right now as we're waiting for all the information about the interventions. So we can't answer all those questions this evening. Okay, thank you. On to reports. I have a long one, and I kind of apologize for that. The first thing I would like to do, and I should have done this at the beginning, is would you give us a little bit of an introduction to you and tell us about
Sure.
your background?
Absolutely. My name is Katie Jefferson. I have lived in Fauquier County mostly for the past 11 years. I'm originally from the Midwest in Michigan, where things are done much differently. So moving to Virginia was an eye-opening experience for me, hence how I end up in places of advocacy often. I'm a speech-language pathologist by trade. I've been doing that for about 17 years. This year I am on a year of educational leave because I fought, like hell, to get a contract for educators. 12,000 educators in Prince William County now have short-term disability for free, regardless of their retirement. And that's the one thing that I cared about. So it mattered a lot. And I'm here. My daughter has dyslexia. She has an IEP. Reading is challenging for her. We're seeing more progress recently than we have, but I would say that the science of reading and moving in that direction makes a speech-language pathologist and me very happy, because the first time I saw a sight word, I wanted to vomit. The end.
All right,
I hate them.
thank you.
We don't, speech-language pathologists, we don't learn or ever was that ever in our learning that it was okay. So in kindergarten, she got a sight word, I'm like, you're supposed to just memorize this word? Like what? Okay.
Thank you. We're glad you're here. Membership. So first, I want to congratulate Mr. Perry here, who has taken a position in Loudoun County
Welcome to the dark side.
in preparation for his marriage this summer.
Congrats.
And he's told me he'll be leaving at the end of the year, and we're just grateful for the time that you've spent with us and for the expertise you've brought to this committee and the perspective that you've brought.
Thank you.
I know you'll be with us for the next 2 meetings, but they won't be live streamed, so I want to make sure that our vast
Bummer.
audience out there in TV land knows that you're leaving and how much we'll miss you. We have also received a resignation from Mandy Wooten. Due to scheduling conflicts, she's unable to continue serving through her term. Since we only have 2 meetings left, it doesn't make a lot of sense to fill that position during the school year, so I won't be actively recruiting, but we will need to fill that position for next year. Membership applications, drum roll please, for next year are right here. I will send these out with the minutes as well, but if you'd like to just go ahead and fill it out, give it back to me, that's one less thing you'll have to do. Because I do need a signature, so if you get it from me electronically, I need you to print it out, sign it, scan it, email it back. Let's see, what else? Disability Awareness Month is underway. We have a whole discussion about that later in the agenda, so I'll leave that at that. I will say that I did enjoy attending the school board meeting where those really, really cute little kids got their awards. So we'll, again, we'll talk about that in a minute. Work sessions, I just want to be clear on the May 4th and May 30th work session. I emailed today. The 30th wasn't on the website, but I think it's on this group's calendar. May 4th and May 30th will be work sessions to work on the annual report. And what that consists of is, oh, here we go, I have it right here. To review the 2022-23 annual report. That's the first thing that I need everyone on the committee to do. I can send that out again. That's always sort of our starting point. We don't have to live with it. We don't have to live with anything in it except for the stuff that's legally required, but it's a good jumping off point. We'll have to report our accomplishments of this year, especially presentations, what we've prioritized for this year, and anything that we'll need to carry over to next year. We'll also need to plan our activities for next year, so what our priorities and presentations will likely be. We've tried to, in recent past, link those together so that we're having presentations on things that we're likely to want to make recommendations on. And then ultimately, we make policy recommendations for this annual report, in addition to saying what we plan to work on next year. And all of that will be a conversation during those work group meetings. So if you have time to go through the report, make some notes to yourself, and come prepared to have that discussion, that will be helpful. I am later going to give us an update on the state Seac, but before I do that, do we have an update from the Parent Resource Center?
There's not any additional information, just that they were focused on the transitions fair.
The transitions fair was outstanding,
Yeah,
thank
and
you.
I just want to thank Mr. Spar for stepping up in the absence of Dr. Schlechter. He was fantastic, very well organized, and he also provided some great feedback for things for us to do next year to help increase the flow of people. So
Great.
really good.
Great, and I sent you an email about some older ones that hadn't even occurred to me, but, Maryland was involved in that years ago, and so there were some, there may, if there needs to be suggestions or anything, that may be helpful, but great feedback, great exhibitors, a lot of information shared, good flow, good flow through there, so congratulations. I know a lot of work went into that and a lot of publicity.
Even despite the weather.
Yeah, and the weather was terrible, so, all right. State Seac update, that's me again. I am your Region 4 State Seac representative, so on Tuesday night, I was with the Culpeper Seac, and last night I was with the Fairfax equivalent of the Seac, and so I figured I wouldn't want to cheat you out of a report from the State Seac, so here I am. For those of you who aren't familiar with State Seac, it's basically like the local Seac, except it's at the state level. The same committee structure, well, we don't have committees, but for those who do, it's roughly the same committee structure. There's a policy committee, a family engagement committee, and a student outcomes committee. I chair the family engagement committee. This was our last meeting of the cycle. We meet quarterly. We'll meet again in July to formalize the annual report, but our year is over as of the end of June. So the biggest conversation, at least in the world that I was running in my committee, was implementation guidance, was implementation of the new VAP tool. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, the Virginia Alternate Assessment Program is the program under which students who have the most significant intellectual disabilities are evaluated or assessed, as opposed to the SOLs. And VDOE has come out with a new tool that IEP teams will use to determine who qualifies for to be tested under the VAP. It's a much more specific tool. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. There's a lot more detail in terms of what the committee has to consider, and a much more specific process, so that if a student doesn't qualify, it's very clear, and there's not a lot of opportunity to qualify someone. And just to give you an idea, and this is not Fauquier County, there were school divisions who had students with, in one case, or two cases, 504 plans. There were school divisions who had students with speech language as primary disabilities who were on the VAP. So for the last couple of years, Ms. Crane's eyeballs just about came out of the front of her
Disability doesn't
face.
drive placement, so somebody could qualify for the VAP and be SLI.
Absolutely.
Depending on
Absolutely.
the
It would be
situation.
very-
Correct, but you cannot have a 504.
Correct, 504 is out.
No
504 is a big ringer.
No 504.
No.
And now the new tool, for example, has basically a big banner that says, if the student's primary
Proceed
disability.
with caution.
I'm sorry?
It says proceed with caution.
Yeah, if the disability category is other than multiple disability, ID, or autism, yes.
Or maybe
You are
OHI. I
probably
think OHI
treading
could be
in,
depending.
right,
Trying to
well, and that's
following
why
the
proceed
right
with
path,
caution.
you know,
Because
the
there are
right program.
students who, for various reasons, have other categories as their primary categories. There, and then it goes through, and it's kind of like a kick it out flow chart, like, do they meet these criteria? Nope, they're out. Go no further. And then you go to the next question, go no further, and then when you get to the end, then you still have to.
Did they keep the criteria roughly the same?
The criteria, there's no change in the law or the regulations of who would qualify.
It's just the
The
decision-making
problem,
tool.
right, but the issue is that historically, everybody's at about 2% of students, and the law says 1% of students. So the tools the tool that's being used is clearly not coming to the result that it's supposed to. And it's very tricky because individual schools are not accountable. You can be, at 100%, well, no, you shouldn't be 100%, but you could have a much higher number at an individual school, and you have school divisions that have 300 students in them. So percentage-wise, for an individual school division, it can kind of fluctuate. But by the time, or individual schools, for example, by the time you get to the state levels, there's accountability to OSEP.
I mean, before this tool comes out, there hasn't been another tool. It's been a
No,
IEP.
well, there's a question, like Virginia
Oh.
IEP does have a section that it
Okay.
walks you through.
Okay.
But it's not a tool like this.
Well,
And this,
that's what
yeah.
that's my point, is
So
this
the,
is completely.
so with the computer, yeah, with it, now with
It was
Virginia
much
IEP,
more
it's
subjective
standardized.
Before, now it's like A, B, C, D, E, and you have to go through and
Right,
score. and,
absolutely.
So
And-
it's totally new in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the state has, I don't think it's a coincidence that this came out very shortly after a big visit from OSEP to VDOE, so, this
It's
is
also
what
very
we're
different because
doing now.
most states have a very clear process.
This
and
one is based on
decision-making tool.
Ohio's. This one's
Yeah.
based on Ohio's.
Texas is very similar.
And I think that's clearly where OSEP wanted VDOE to get to. So we'll see over time how this works out in terms of percentages. But it's coming, and it's being implemented in July, and it will affect students with IEPs that are done after July of this year. So it means that if you have a student who has been on the VAP track all the way up to high school, if they actually don't qualify under the new tool, they are now on the SOLs. Okay? And that's a pretty big deal for a whole lot of people, and I'm not sure anybody feels good about that as an outcome. For all that I love inclusion, that's a really rough kind of situation to figure out. And so I think we have a lot of expertise here. We have a lot of expertise, in our school division, but I think we need to be looking, there are a lot of big issues coming down the road between literacy and the VAP and inclusive
Inclusion.
practices in general. And it's my hope and expectation that we will be a force for good in the world and provide good counsel and be responsive to areas where the school maybe gives us guidance that they need some advice or recommendations from us. So that's kind of where we're coming from. But that's the VAP tool at the state level. Implementation guidance is being written right now by VDOE, and that will be coming soon, which was a big relief to all the people who were in school divisions on the Seac. Parent training is also coming before the end of the year. That'll be online, and PTC's working right now to get their training up and running. So there will be some resources. Honestly, I think one of the big challenges, and this is something that the PRC and our group, I think, can help with, just informally in talking to people, is I think there's going to be a lot of misunderstanding by parents, and it's complicated. So helping them to understand what's going on, what the value of inclusion is, just generally explaining why it's good to have kids being educated together and why it's good to have your kid maybe having a more challenging test in the long run, and what the advantages of that are. The other thing that my committee was very busy trying to do was get access to due process filings and complaints. Not the actual filings, but a summary of the issues, because in Virginia, the number of complaints or the percentage of complaints that actually goes to final resolution is just a tiny, tiny
6%.
fraction. It's less than that, yeah. It's very small. I'm sorry, not complaints, the due process. Right now, we don't see the complaints on the website. The due process filings, once they're settled, those are all sealed. So we can't see what happened, but we can at least see what the issues are, because the state Seac has to look at what are the trends in issues affecting students, and we actually are required to review the final outcomes of the due process hearings. But since we have so few, it's hard to do the job and identify trends. So that's one thing we're working on. And then we also just spent a lot of time developing new resources for local Seacs. And those will be up on the VDOE website hopefully within the next couple of months. I'm doing the final edits this week. More Seac things. The policy committee has been really focused on teacher recruitment and training, although there's I think everybody out there is doing about everything they can. Instruction for gen ed teacher licensing, this is a big one, and our incoming vice chair is a professor at James Madison who teaches special education, teaches teachers. So looking at getting instruction on inclusion, inclusive practices, how to do accommodations, understanding that as a teacher of any public school student, you are expected to teach students with disabilities, and that's not a pick and choose kind of thing. So that, I think we'll be seeing a lot of that next year. The policy committee also met with my committee on the VAP tool. And then the Student Achievement and Outcomes Committee was gathering a lot of information. We spent most of our time in subcommittees this time, I should say subcommittee. But July is their big month because we go over all the indicators for special education. So they'll be very, very busy coming into that. We had a presentation by VCU's Center for Family Engagement on their Family Navigators program. So for those of you who aren't familiar with that, they have a program that matches experienced families with new families with kids with disabilities who need help throughout the state. And they match the Family Navigators program out of VCU's Center for Family Engagement. And Rebecca Stickler, who was a member of this committee 2 years ago, and her husband teaches in the county and has students in the county. She works on that program. So we definitely have access to get information. But that program, they match based on sameness. So you could say, I'm a military family, I want to be matched with a military family, or I'm a single parent, I'd like to work with another single parent. So whatever, or it may be regional, may be more important. So those are, that's a real resource that we should be aware of. Like I said, we'll be finalizing our annual report in July. So that's what your state Seac is doing for you. Any questions? Any questions?
I love the over the glasses look.
You like that?
Yeah.
Okay. There were a lot of questions about the VAP tool from the Fairfax Seac.
I was going to say, I have a question about the VAP tool, looking at like a more local standpoint. Are we going to talk about at all the fact that, so I'm thinking about it from the educator side of things and then the student end result, like, are they thinking about pre-auditing any VAP students prior to the start of the school year to flag a student that may no longer qualify? Like, if you have a student who is on the edge, right, and they were in, are we saying,
So,
like, could they go through and look at all the students that are in VAP and then really look at what kids, because if you're going to make, their annual IEP isn't until May, or let's say, I don't know, I'm just playing a game, March. The SOL is in, like, not far after that. So they could have, 3 days to prepare prior to?
Well, no, it's not being implemented until July.
July. So
Right.
you're saying March
That's
would
what
have
I'm
been
saying.
for
Next year. I'm looking at next year.
So,
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, my immediate response to that would be that consideration can only be done by an IEP team. So the
Right.
way to do that would be to call an early IEP meeting.
Right. So then what you're that's
I'm
a
not
lot.
recommending
I know, but
anything.
like what you're suggesting is then you'd have to take all your VAP kids, call an early IEP meeting, where I'm just saying, like, somebody could, from central office, somebody could go in and start auditing files, looking at the information, the things that you might
The
go.
problem is that the criteria, like, for example, we're not looking at IQs anymore.
It seems like the
Except
better
in the
way,
most
the better way to
holistic
do it could be
sense.
the IEPs this spring, knowing that this tool is coming out, the IEP meetings this spring, then the team could say, okay.
But we don't know it,
we
what
don't-
it is
That,
until
we
July.
do, we do.
Oh,
Oh, no,
we
no,
do.
no, it's
Oh, I
out.
thought you said it's
It's out.
out.
And
Oh,
actually,
okay.
that
It's not enforced
specific,
until
that
July.
specific
Oh,
question.
okay, then yes, we should start using it and looking at
That's
that
Just
now.
previewing
Yes.
it this spring so that we can.
So,
plan for-
so that specific question was asked
Okay.
at the meeting by another school division. It was not me. Can the tool, it's, honestly, I have a lot of fear about, I'm concerned that the way this is gonna roll out, that it may, I hope it isn't counterproductive. Just the way that it's so like
Well,
thrown on, yeah.
It
At
almost
one
seems like
time.
if they were to start an elementary school the next
The
year.
yeah.
But it's like.
It's
obviously
one of those things,
it's-
like, once you have a tool, and
it's
this is the
following
tool.
law. The problem is it's
following the law.
following the
Yes.
law.
So
which is
the,
what
I
it
think
should've been.
the answer to the question, can we use the tool earlier, was that there's nothing that says you cannot use the tool earlier.
But it's not officially needed.
So what
to
I
use a
will
screener.
do, is I will attach the tool and the FAQs
Okay.
to my email so that you all can see them. In fairness to the division,
I know.
they just got this,
It was like last week.
Right.
very recently. It was,
It's a lot.
it was not well handled by VDOE.
Yeah.
Basically, it,
Well, they've kind of decided this year is the year for everything.
Well,
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
what did VDOE decide to do this year? I mean, this is
Also,
insane.
There was definitely a plan within the office within the special education office, to kind of get it out to the division directors so that they had a chance to see it and kind of brace themselves before it went out to the world. And then it all of a sudden showed up in the superintendent's newsletter before that happened. And silly me, I go looking for it, thinking that this is no big deal. And eventually got the email from the head of special ed for the state of Virginia, asking me what was going on. I was like, I looked at the newsletter. It said this thing was out there. So anyway, there's a lot here, and I think we have to be very charitable in our process, because everybody, parents, teachers, administrators, everybody is going
I'm
to
just
struggle
thinking a way
with
to
this.
prevent the fear in which it's, because that could,
And that may be a good solution, and maybe some.
I've been in
hybrid of that.
thousands of IEP meetings where
Yeah.
things have been decided and I have been like, I don't know if that's VAP track, but, like,
Well,
Yeah.
and if there is an element of anxiety that starts to be brought up, maybe the social workers should be brought in as a part of that to help remind people that it is a growing experience and that your entire life is not on the line from this one thing.
Yeah.
And,
The-
I think as a team, you
The
can
more,
utilize-
the more challenging issue, and this raises a whole other set of issues that we're not going to get into tonight, but we will get into next year, is that at this time, anyone who's on the VAP, their instruction is limited to the VSOLs. And so it's not just the test, it's the curriculum. So at the moment, somebody is determined, and curriculum should not, the assessment someone is taking and the disability identification that someone has and the placement they have are
Do not drive each
totally
other.
separate
Right.
decisions, and they're based on different criteria. But as a practical matter, there's going to be some shifting around that's going to have to.
And I think unfortunately, anytime you have a major change in something, there's always going to be those outliers.
Yep, and that's exactly there's going to be a transition process in this. I think 10 years down the road, we're going to look back and say, we're where we should be, but the next few years are going to be rough. Any other questions about that? I didn't mean to get into a whole big discussion about that, but that is going to be something that, just the implementation of that and how we can support it or recommend things around that.
But
think is
I
something we
just,
need to talk
my
about.
concern, I do hear, even just off of the board, a lot of anxiety. So anything to just help with the anxiety of it.
Well, and just recognizing that it's going to be there. Yeah.
and some parents might not even know. They might sit down at a meeting and then find out at that moment.
Yeah. Well,
And that's where my fear comes in. 'cause
Well, and for
no,
teachers,
and
for teachers too,
Yeah.
because that's going to be a huge change. So a lot going on, and I know a lot of it hasn't been figured out yet, and in fairness, there's no way anybody could have figured it out this quickly, so that'll be something we'll be talking about. All right, where are we? March Disability Awareness Month update. March Disability Awareness Month is going extremely well. The staff, central office staff has been knocking it out of the park. I've seen lots of lots of publicity, a great school board meeting with very cute children, kindergartners, a whole kindergarten class, Mrs. Readers at Greenville. And I think was she a first grader for PB Smith? Third? Oh, really? Oh, she was little. Anyway,
Girls are
so that was very exciting. Are you taking notes?
Yes.
Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness. I just about had a panic attack. Okay, let me get in, sorry, don't mind me. I have her name here somewhere, and I want to get it in the minutes. Kelsey Hollins, Kelci, not a first grader, at PB Smith. And Mrs. Reeder, Reder, her kindergarten class. And those posters will be printed and sent out to all the schools in the division, and you can see them on the wall at your local school. The second part of Disability Awareness Month is the resource list distribution. That has gone out to librarians and others in the county. It is also posted, I just checked today, it's posted on the Seac webpage. It's underneath the list of dates of our meetings, so if you want to print that out. And my hope is that we'll just keep that updated and just keep adding to it. And the plan is that we're going to do Disability History Awareness Month in October, so we'll be developing more history resources as well, and I'm excited about that. And finally, March 21st, mark your calendars, Crazy Sock Day, in recognition of World Down Syndrome Day, and also just a celebration here in Fauquier. So get your socks if you haven't already. And I will send out, I think there's a flyer or some kind of art. I'll try to get that maybe from it's Amanda, right? Amanda, the publicity. No, what's
Chrissy Young.
no.
Erica Yellow.
Erica, sorry, Erica.
We'll get there.
Erica, and she's done such a great job, I feel terrible. She says she's got like good art on Crazy Sock Day, so we'll try to get that out too, so you can share that. And then our remaining 2024 meetings, It says May 2nd, is it really May,
Third,
is it May
right?
4th?
I'll pull it up, I have it in my
It's a
calendar.
Thursday.
May 4th, isn't it? Yeah, I think it's.
I have it as the 4th on some things, on the second.
May
Second is a
2nd
Thursday.
is the Thursday.
Okay, would you mind making a note to ask Kathy
the second,
to
not the
change
4th?
that from the 4th to the 2nd? That she
The
just,
4th is a Saturday.
we're not meeting on a Saturday.
I will be at soccer.
Those are work sessions. We will not live stream, but we will need to be able to get into the building. And having Brandon do what he's doing has made it very easy to get into the building. So that's all good. Anything else about our remaining meetings? Any questions about Disability Awareness Month? So far, so good. New business, applications for 2024-25 Seac membership. You have them in front of you. We'll have 2 vacancies. And so if you know of anyone who is interested in applying for membership to the Seac, oh, thank you. This better scan, Megan.
Oh, because it's in green.
Girl, that's what I got.
It's
Teacher
green.
pens.
It's green.
Always flip.
It's green Halton pen. Great. They'll know that you're experienced.
Very excited.
Oh, I
Or
guess you
something
don't
like
need
that.
one, huh?
All right. If you know of anyone, please have them email the Seac email address, and I'll set a time to call them. The school board has asked, or through the clerk, if I would talk to anybody who's interested, explain it to them, and then make a recommendation on membership. Roundtable discussion. Let's start here, so I don't put Katie on the spot. Although she seems like she's got this under.
Yeah, I
under
mean,
control.
I'm.
Nothing new?
Nothing new.
All
I'm
right.
good.
Nothing? Just
I
nothing?
asked my question.
Megan was with us. Megan was with us at the Disability Fair. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Seriously. Nothing.
If you'd like to come to a St. Patrick's Day dance, we have one Saturday night at the Remington Lions Club, 5 to 8. So you're welcome to just.
That would be
come
the
along.
ARC, not the Seac.
Yeah. the
Seac's
ARC
not
is
hosting
the ARC,
dances.
But it's a public, open to the public, so.
There'll be public
If
comment.
you'd like to dance it up with some fun folks, come on down.
When is that?
Saturday night, 5 to 8, Remington Lions Club.
We can get you some info. I'll make sure Marilyn
Yep.
has your email address.
Would that I could, but I'm unavailable Saturday night.
You're
Oh,
unavailable.
that's a bummer. So other than getting married, do you have anything else to report?
That's really the biggest thing.
I would.
And then
Bigger
there's
can you get?
the new job I just started.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We're very happy for you.
Yeah.
Our newest member,
Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome to the
You've
jungle.
heard enough from me today.
We're glad to have you here.
Glad to be
Is
here.
there anything welcome to our guests? We're always glad to have all of you here. So do you have any questions? Is there anything we need to be doing that we're not doing? Probably. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
All right. We will see you back here on May 2nd.
Second.
The first
You will not
Thursday
see
in
me on May
May. Oh my gosh, I wonder, I'm trying to think what I wrote that on.
I like you, Amy, but
There's
I'm
no
not